Guys, can we talk about some of the stuff that we did yesterday? Can anyone talk about what did we do yesterday, guys? We built a guessing game. What did we know? What did we have to know how to do in order to build a guessing game? Anything. We had to know a lot of things, right? We had to know HTML. We had to know attributes of an HTML tag, right? For example, the style attribute to change whether or not something is visible. That's another thing. What else do we have to know, guys? We had to know how to select items or elements on an HTML page using JavaScript. How do we do that, guys? How can we find an element on an HTML page using JavaScript? Yes, we're using the DOM API. Well, what is the object that we need to access in order to call functions?
Document get element by ID.
Are there any other ways we can get elements, guys?
Get element by class.
We can do class, we can do tags, we can do all types of different things. CoderSchool is just introducing you guys to the very beginning, okay? Different ways of thinking about this, okay? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and do this guessing game again because some of us had trouble. For those of you who have completed it and did a good job, thank you. Thank you for your work. Consider this review, and we're gonna try to figure out how to do this better, okay? And I also want you guys to help me out because you guys can see by my coding, I don't know a lot. I Google a lot. And I want you guys to be a part of my team. In the future, whenever you guys work at a company, you're gonna be working on a team and they're gonna be paying you money to Google stuff. Okay, so you guys get used to Googling stuff. All right, so the first thing that this instruction says is what? We're working on a solo project. We should be using Git. What's the purpose of Git? To share our code. What types of ways do we share code? We got to give it to people. Sometimes we need to get it. Sometimes our students have code and they need us help us review it. Git will help us share code. No matter what project you guys are working on, you will be using Git. That's why we learned Git on the first week of class. This is a very important concept, just as much as writing a function, just as much as writing a variable. All these things matter. Okay, so because I know I'm going to be using making a Git project, I'm going to go ahead and make a directory in order to do this. Okay, I'm going to do guessing game. Now that I've made it, I'm going to move into my guessing game directory. I see that this is not a GitHub repository yet. How can I tell, guys? Yeah, I don't see that I'm on a branch. So I'm going to run git init. Okay, so now I can see that I have master. So I'm going to go ahead and create a couple files because I know I'm going to need these in just a second. We'll call one index.html. We'll call one scripts.js. And then we'll call one more readme.md. Okay, so now when I do ls, I can see all the files in this folder, right? So I'm gonna jump over to our instructions. I'm gonna copy. I'm gonna go ahead and copy this readme. I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna copy all this right here. I'm going to add this to my README file. Well, first I got to open up my code editor, right? Now I'm going to open up my README file, paste it. All right, that looks good. Now we need to update our user stories because this project is different than the template. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to add it right here. Replace the user stories here. And now if I look at my README, open. I can see my user stories here, guys, in the preview already, right? It's nicely formatted and it's easier to read. Okay, so let's go ahead and get going on the functionality. So a user can attempt to guess a random integer between 1 and 100 by entering a value into a text box. So in order to do this, I need to have a UI. So I'm going to jump to my index.html. I'm going to create a very simple HTML file so that the user can have a little bit of UI to work with. I'm going to get my file template, copy this, I'm gonna paste this in the index.html. Now we need a button. HTML button. Okay. So we got a button here. We'll add this one to above the scripts.
Is your JavaScript in the folder?
Thank you. Yes, it's not. This file would have failed to load correctly. So yeah, good job, man. Thank you. So I'm moving it to the correct folder. I'm a console.log test. Thank you, Phil. Okay. I'm gonna save this file over here. That's not gonna work. Okay, so now let's go ahead and open this file to make sure everything confirms. Guys, get in the habit of confirming what you've done so far. If we move too quickly and we add too much code and we see something stop working, we're not gonna know where this error came from. So I can see console.log Phil. So I can confirm that the JavaScript was properly loaded, right? Okay, so what else? Need the README. So we need an input too, right, guys? HTML input, right? So it's just an input tag, looks something like this. No, is it a text input? I'm gonna look at some code. Guys, don't be scared to look at your old code, okay? It's okay to look at old code. CD number. So what does the input look like? Okay, it is this. I was wrong. So now we need input at the top, above our button. And I'm gonna close these. I need that one. So we now see our input. We can input stuff in here, right? If I click it, nothing happens, right? What do we want to do, guys? What are we doing with this input? It's a number that a user guessed, right? So that we know that we have a number right here. I can see right here there is a number. And if I look at the elements through my Chrome console, I can see that there's an input right here. And when I hover over it, there's a number inside of it. That's called the value attribute, right? The value attribute. I can see that this is ID guess. So I'm gonna test this just to make sure that we understand how this code works correctly, okay? I'm gonna do document.getElementById. I'm gonna name the ID of the element I want. I'm gonna change the value to something. I'm gonna change it to 1, okay? If I run that code, what happens up here? What just happened? I changed the value in the console, right? I changed the value in the console using code, right here, right? So, but in order to guess the number, in order for a user to guess a number, we need a number that is to be guessed, right? So now we can just jump over to our code, right? And we can jump to scripts.js. And now we need to write a generated number. We need to define a generated number. So we do let random number equals, who remembers this? Math.floor. Math.rand. I don't remember. Generate JS. Random, yeah. This one right here. W3 schools, man. All right, this is what I'm looking for. What am I gonna do now, guys? Now that I got some code and I don't know what it does. I'm gonna check the code. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna just run this code. Let's just see what happens. 2, 2, 6, 3, 5, etc. So this looks about right, right?
Well, you gotta make it to 100.
I can make it to 100. For the future reference, guys, all these user stories, I want you guys to actually change it a little bit. You know, I want you to make it your own. I saw some people say change it to 3. You know, we could easily have changed this game to guess a color, right? We could have guessed a color. Instead of comparing integers, we could have guessed letters or words. That's possible too. Okay, so now I know what the, we have a random number defined, right? So I'm gonna do console.log, random number, right? And then I'm gonna say, here's my random number. So when this page loads, when this page loads, I should see a random number. You guys see this? Can we confirm that this is a random number? Yeah? It's always a different number, right? Okay, so the user can attempt to guess a random integer between 1 and 100. All right, so we have a random number. In order to determine when a user has guessed, what do we need to listen for? What do we need to listen for to know that a user is prepared to confirm their guess? A button. But what about a button that we want to listen for? We want to listen for the event of a click. We don't want to listen to the event of a hover, right? If I go over here, right, and I'm a user, and I hover my mouse over this button, does that mean I'm prepared to click it? No. But there are situations in which we want to have behavior based on the user scrolling. If things were to move quickly, we could do a game. We could do a game this afternoon and tomorrow that has that behavior. We want to pay attention to a user's mouse, and then we're going to do certain things based on that mouse movement. But right now, I just want to do the click. Okay? I just want to guess a number. So when I click this button right here, we need to figure out what? We need to figure out what's inside of this input. Okay? We need to figure out what's inside of that input, and then what do we need to do after that? First we got to figure out what's inside this input, and then what do we got to do after that?
We need to know the value of the input.
So let's pretend that we know how to get the value of the input. Afterwards, what do we do? Okay. Afterwards, we need to compare it with the random number. All right, so who can help me write some code that does this?
But I think you need to format the number here. You have to format the number. Is it the correct number before we compare?
Yes, we do need to determine data types. Correct. We need to make sure it's the right data. But we can do that many different ways. Okay, so in order to do this, right, when our button is clicked, we need to fire a function. So in order to do that, we're going to give it an onClick attribute. And we're going to pass this the name of a function that we define. So we're going to say user guess parentheses. Now I'm going to create this function in my JavaScript. So I'm going to say function.
Is there any way you can create the click function in the JavaScript?
Yes, you can, but you should not do that because that's going to make your code very difficult to read. It's going to be very difficult to read this. So in order to confirm that this works, okay, I'm just going to say random number, okay? When this function fires on line 5 and 7, I'm just going to console log the random number that we define on line 1. So we notice that it does not fire here. The function has not fired yet, right? But if I click it, what? Did I say these? If I click it, the number is there. And I'm seeing the console log every single time I click. So we can confirm that when this button is clicked, there is a function being fired. Because we see this console log right here. Right? Okay, so now, what do we need to do now, guys? We just talked about this. Guess the number, right? We gotta determine what number the user guessed. So I'm gonna define a new variable because it's gonna make my life easier. I'm gonna be using this number multiple times throughout this function, okay? So I'm gonna say user guessed, user number guessed. Okay, that seems reasonable. I'm gonna grab this data. I'm gonna document that get element by ID, guess dot value. What should I do now in order to confirm that this works? I'm gonna console log it. I want you guys to get in the habit of this, okay? Because this is a very important skill. Like, it's very important to know how to do this or do this correctly. So I'm gonna do this right here. So I do in fact have the number that is typed in here. And it could be something else, right? It could be letters, right? This is something we need to think about as developers. If this is a number guessing game, should users be allowed to enter letters? No, we have to validate. We have to say like, hey man, you cannot put numbers in or letters in here. It has to be numbers. But even if I put in 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 it can still end up being a string. So that's another degree of difficulty. We have to make sure that the user inputs the correct data. And then we have to make sure that the data is the correct data type. So there are multiple challenges that we face right now. Okay, so I have the guess number, right? So now this is the point where we run a conditional. We say, hey, if the guess number, the number guessed, is equal to our random number, then we'll do something. We'll console.log correct number. Okay, I'm gonna do this quickly because I don't want to go over this. I don't want to bore you guys. So we're gonna do the exact same thing, except now we're gonna do it for guys. What's the next things? What's the next use case that's gonna occur? Well, what if the number's too big, right? The number's too big and the number's too low. I'm sorry, maybe I'm jumping around a little bit too much, but that's a requirement, right? The user can press a button to check their guess. They receive feedback on whether or not their guess was too low, too high, or correct. Okay? So now I'm good. Yes?
If the answer is correct,
What do you
so we will return something.
say again?
Check again. Check again. Repeat your page.
Yeah?
And what's the random?
You want me to console log it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this real quick. Number 2, small. So the random number is 2.
Yeah, try to put 2.
Does anyone know what he's getting at right now? What does Qual want me to think about?
Numbers correct. Oh, the same number as well.
Qual wants me to validate whether or not it's the same data type. He's saying, hey guys, I may type in 2 right now, but I don't think it's gonna work. And it does not work. Because when this number right here is blue, and this might change in the future, I don't know, this might change. If it's blue, what data type is that? It's a number, right? How can we confirm this? I'm gonna do console.log, random number, type of, random number. Oops. Random number, right? Now, I'm gonna do it to number guessed as well, okay? We're gonna see these 2 data types. I'm gonna see these in the console log, right? So if I refresh it, and I guess, one of them is a number, one of them is a string. Are numbers and strings the same thing? No, right? I'm gonna prove this to you, okay? Now we're gonna do a third one. We're gonna console.log, are numbers the same as strings? And on the right, we're gonna make an expression. We're gonna say type of random number. Is that the same thing as type of guess number? Right? So I'm gonna refresh the page. I'm gonna enter some stuff. Click me. Are numbers the same thing as strings? They're not. And we can prove that. We just proved it. This string right here printed to the console, and we see that it evaluated to false. These 2 data types are not the same thing, right? Okay, so now that we're done console logging, let's go ahead and clean up our code a little bit. So what can we do to solve this problem? We can take this and parse it. No, let's do this one. Okay, all right, let's just see this right now, okay? So you guys saw a second ago, right? This is evaluated to false. Everyone saw that, right? Hill,
Yes.
what'd you just see?
So you put the I guess equal high or lower than the number.
We just proved, guys, we just proved that numbers and strings are not the same. I console logged it for us. We made the evaluation, okay? Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna parse some data. Oops, where am I at? Okay? This number guessed right here. We want this to be the same data type as our generated number, our random number, right? So what can we do? We can simply parse it. So I'm gonna wrap all this in a function call. You can imagine this right here. Do you see document.getElement by ID on line 7? You can imagine that when this returns, it gives us back something like this. It's a 1 that's inside of a string, or a 100 inside of a string, right? That's what the purpose of the parse int is. It takes one argument. That argument, it turns into a number. If it cannot turn that argument into a number, what does it return? Not a number. Watch, I'm gonna prove that to you one more time. Okay? So we see parse int right here. I'm gonna console log it. This is what the power of console log is. Okay? So I'm gonna refresh, enter a number, I'm gonna click me. Did I not say this? Huh. Okay, so number guessed had, and I guess it got rid of the letter. Huh. Okay, but anyway, so we just understand that parse int takes an argument. It's a function call. It takes an argument just like all the functions that we have defined. Okay? So let's go ahead and replace this code because we want to move forward with the lab. So I'm going to remove this to clean up my code. We're going to keep this. All right. Okay, what's the next one? A user can attempt to guess a number between 1 and 100. A user can press a button and check their guess is too low, receive feedback. All right, so let's go ahead and add Bootstrap because I don't want to style everything myself. I'm too lazy. So I'm going to go to the Bootstrap documentation. I'm going to find the CDN for Bootstrap, and I'm going to include it in my HTML file. Okay? I'm going to include it above my custom CSS file. This doesn't exist yet, but you guys are going to make that work, okay? I'm going to jump back to this project, and we can see that this changed a little bit. You guys see that? So we have Bootstrap. Okay, so now we need to add an alert. I'm going to copy an alert over here. We can see some alerts right here, guys. See this? These are examples from Bootstrap. So I'm going to copy one alert. I'm going to add it over here to right below the button. If I refresh the page, I can see the alert right here. All right, so what's the problem with this alert, guys? It shouldn't be showing yet, right? I haven't guessed anything. The page just loaded. I should not be seeing anything. So by default, we want it to be invisible, right? So we say style equals visibility. Visibility is hidden. Is that it? Did this wrong? I spelled this wrong. Visibility. I think I spelled that right. Yeah. So this works, guys. See how it's invisible right now, right? Can we confirm that this is here? Can we? I'm gonna click elements. I'm gonna look through my divs, and I can see it right here. It's right there. But the problem is it's hidden. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this, right? I'm gonna change it. If I change it, we can see that it does in fact show. Okay. So now we want to add or remove classes to this element based on the behavior, based on our conditional that happens when a user clicks a button. Okay? Does that make sense? We want to run some code when we click this button, and based on what happens in here, we're going to change this button or this div on lines 19 through 21. Okay? That's the objective here. So now what we need to do is find the button or find the div. Okay? So I'm going to say if the document.get element by ID. What ID do I have, guys? None. So what can I do? I can add one. Exactly. So the ID equals user prompt. Okay? There, that seems like a reasonable name. So now we're going to test it. We're going to make sure this works. So we're going to do document.get element by ID. I'm going to name the user prompt. Does anyone remember how to change the style? Dot style. Dot visibility equals. Right now we see it. What do we want it to become? Hidden. Is that right? JS change CSS property. I remember how to do this. Style. Right, that seems right. Why is this working? Someone help me out. Show, right?
visible.
Visible? Visible.
No, change
The attribute is the value is visible or hidden.
Okay, so it's
visible.
visible. Okay, so that worked. Excellent. Okay, so all we gotta do is target this element. So what do we do here on the left of this equation, guys? Or the left of this expression? We found an element. We looked at its style attribute. And then we looked at the visibility key of the style attribute. And we assigned it a new value. Okay? So I'm just gonna copy this entire line. And if the user guessed correctly, okay, let's just guess incorrectly every single time, okay? I'm gonna guess incorrectly every single time. Right there. And we're gonna say our number is always gonna be 1,000, 100. We're gonna say it's 1, okay? I want this line of code on line 9 to work, okay? I want line 9 to fire just to test it first. Afterwards, we'll apply it to every other one. So here, let's just copy this. This is what I would suggest you guys do. We'll comment out the original, right? And now we'll just add another one right here. So number will always be 1, okay? And now, if the number of guests is too large, this line of code will run. So I'm gonna refresh the page. I'm gonna guess 2. So we can see that after we guess wrong, here, this is console log this, console.log, wrong guess. Right? This is testing one more time, okay? It was the wrong guess. Right? And look at our alert, guys. We did get the alert that popped up. What's wrong with this alert? It says success. That's good, that's right. It should not be saying success. I guess wrong, right? What else is wrong? It's the wrong color. So we'll say JS change HTML class. Okay, so we see right here, guys. So we can see right here that we copy this. We can also can we set the class name? Remove. Remove. I want to remove a class, but here. So let's just start simple, okay? So user prompt right here. That looks good. I copied it just to make sure it works. So now I'm going to jump back and test. This is very important. Test. So now I'm going to add a new style or a new class name. What's the class name that I want if I want it to be read?
Danger.
Danger. That's exactly what I want. So I'm going to go back here. You guys see that? You guys see what just happened? Let's refresh it and test it one more time. So I guess we changed this to appear, its visibility. We made it appear, but that's not good enough, guys. We need to change the color. So I want it to be red if it's wrong. All right, that works. We can prove that it works. We just proved that it works. So I'm gonna copy this down here. What else do we need to change right here, guys? Okay, we also need to change the text. So we can do this what? We can do this right here, right? Except we want to do what? Inner HTML equals you guessed. We can make this even smarter. Your guess of what? Number guess was wrong. It's too low. It's too low, right? It's too high. Okay? So I'm gonna refresh. I'm gonna do 2. I'm gonna click. The text changed. The text changed, the color changed, and the div also changed. The div was invisible before, the div had different text, and the div also was a different color. So we've changed 3 things. So now we want to do the same thing. We want to do the same thing, guys, except we want to do it for what? When the user guesses too low, right? Except we want this text to be a little bit different. We want one thing to be different, right? We want to say too low. That's the only thing we want different. Wrong guess. Wrong guess too high. Wrong guess too low. Right? All right, so now I can change. Let's just guess any number. The number right now is 1, right? So I'm gonna guess 12. 12 is higher than 1, right? and it said guess too high, right? So the number is 1. I'm gonna guess 0. What should the text say, guys? What should my console log say? If the random number is 1, I guess 0. What should the console log say? The guess is too low. Tell me what the div will say. It's too low, correct. I'm gonna click it. My guess of 0 was wrong. It's too low. Okay, so it looks like we gave the user some prompt. I forgot what the requirements were. Yeah, I know, but I can't see it side by side. The user can attempt to guess a random number between 1 and 100. Okay, so what if a user guesses 0? I completely messed up the first user story. I got way ahead of ourselves. Right? Right here, the requirement says 1 through 100. So what can we do? How can we validate this data, guys? We need to check to make sure the value right here on line 6 is a number between 1 and 100. Right? So we need to use the constant that we have right now. We need to use this variable, and we need to see whether or not it lies between 1 and 100. Okay, so we need a range. Check if number between JavaScript. JavaScript, check if number is between. Okay? Is not what I'm looking for. Oh, there it is. I just found it. Max. This is what I'm looking for. Max 100. Okay. Math.min is 1. Okay. Okay. How did you do this yesterday? I did an array with this yesterday. JS range between 2 numbers. This is what it's called. Okay, I'm gonna look at some old code because I don't want you guys to waste time watching me Google CD CoderSchool CD number. I saw an example of this. It was yesterday. Was this one it? Yeah, it was during that JavaScript one. I remember I helped Ann with this. Okay, guys, give me a second. I'm gonna come back to this one later. Okay, we got other stuff to do. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's go back to our user stories. After a user, okay, so let's pretend this one works. Number 2 is we got some feedback. Number 3 is after a user enters a guess, the text box is cleared. Where's an example of this, guys? Where do we see this behavior? Right, this is an input, right? This is the exact same thing as this right here. A user clicks it and then they type some stuff, right? They click it and they type some stuff. But after they hit this, we want this to disappear. We don't want a user to have to go back and delete it. That doesn't make sense. So what's the next thing we're gonna do? So we're gonna find this element again, and then we're gonna set its value to be an empty string, okay? But the thing is where does this one line of code belong? Line 20. Where does it belong? Why? So it will change a value in HTML, but where I have it right now is not an appropriate place. Why is that? Why should it not be in the else if? Exactly. This is something that should happen whether or not they're right, whether or not they're wrong, whether or not they're too high, whether or not they're too low. If I would have left it here, this code, if I would have left it where it is right now on line 20, this code would only have ran if what condition was met? Exactly. If the number that the user guessed was lower than the random number, that code would have ran, but we want it to run every time. So I'm gonna refresh and we're gonna test. So I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3. Okay, I did this wrong. Dot value. Oops, it should be guess. It should be guess. Okay, oops. Let's do this one more time. 1, 2, 3. Ah, so this disappeared. Whenever I click this button, it disappeared. I don't like the word click me. It should say something better. It should be guess. Guess number. Okay? So one more time. I'm gonna demo one more time. Guys, here's a number. I'm entering it into our input. Okay, here's a big number. I'm gonna click this button. I want to see this disappear. And in fact, disappeared. And the number was too low. Look at this number. Is that bigger than 1? Yes. Okay, so so the text box is cleared. The user sees feedback about the most recent guess in a Bootstrap alert class div. If the guess is correct, the user sees a div with the class success. Okay, so now we need to do one that says success, right? So I'm gonna copy all these lines of code right here, and I'm gonna add this to the case in which it is in which it's success. There you go. You say your guess of blah 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 was correct. Yay. Right, guys? So I'm gonna refresh it. What's the random number? The random number is 1. I'm gonna guess. Ah, and the behavior is as we expected. We see the text that says your guess was correct. We see that it has the Bootstrap class of success, so it's green. And we also see that the text box was cleared. Sweet. Okay, the user is limited to 10 guesses to guess the correct number and can see the number of remaining guesses after each incorrect guess by a guess remaining area. So first off, we want to make sure that we define a number which represents the number of guesses that a user has. Okay? So right now I'm going to hard code something right here. I'm going to hard code H1 number of guess. I'm going to say P here. Oops. P here. Say 10. We're going to start with 3. Okay? 10 is too many. So it's at 3. If I refresh this page, I see that I have 3 guesses right here. Let's go ahead and wrap everything in a container. Does that work? I feel like this should be centered. Did I do something wrong? I should see some margin. What's going on here? Column? Container. What's? Oh, it's class. Come on, guys. The class of container. Okay, so we have 3 guesses right here, guys. The objective is that whenever a user makes a guess, we should not allow. We should do what? This number should change by 1, right? So when the page first loads, how many guesses does the user have? When the page loads, the user has 3 guesses. The first thing we should do when a user guesses is that we should do what? We should check to see how many guesses they have. If it's 0, we want to prompt. We want to prompt the user. Except this prompt is going to be different. What's a good color? Bootstrap alert. Okay, we're going to do warning, I think it is. It's yellow. Yep. Bootstrap warning. Out of guess. Okay? So refresh the page. For our number of guesses is 0. Okay, so we have a problem right now, guys. Even though we're making this comparison, no matter how many times I click this, I don't actually change the number. I don't change the number of guests on line 3, right? So I can click this an infinite number of times and will not complain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to update this number at the end. Number of guests minus equal 1.
I didn't get that.
Okay? And afterwards, we're going to console log this just to make sure that these numbers are in fact decrementing. Okay? So I'm going to guess. That's simple. You guys see that? 2.
Can you do that again, sir?
So I'm explain. Okay. So remember, we need to have a variable which will contain the logic that will determine whether or not to show the user, or whether or not the user can guess. But before we do anything else, we want to determine how many guesses the user currently has, right? And if that number is set to 0, we don't let them do anything else. Actually, I did let them do something else. Why? Because I did not return. None of this code should be running after that. But additionally, I also need to add some styling, some text, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So let's just try this one more time. I guess once, guess twice, guess 3, guess 4. What?
You took up the number of guesses. The variable.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay, yeah, thank you guys. Who said definition there? Who said that? I just heard someone say definition. What? Good job, man. I like hearing keywords. It makes me when you guys use keywords, it's easier for me to understand what you guys are saying. You know, like we gotta have names for things, guys. I want to hear you guys say line numbers, keywords, stuff like that. Okay, so I return here. I refresh the page. I don't see a complaint. If I guess once, okay, it's too high. The number is 1. Remember. Let's guess 0. I should say it's too low. It is in fact too low, right? Now I'm gonna guess 4. Too high again. When I click guess number this time, I expect this to turn yellow and it to tell me I'm out of guess. Out of guess. Okay, guys. So we're moving quickly. Guess remaining area. The user can restart the game by pressing a start over button.
You get a number of guesses still remain though.
Oh, okay. So we noticed right here that this sucked, right? What did we do wrong here, guys? Let's refresh the page. It's 3 right now. I guess once. What should this number be?
2.
Right? So what can we do to change this? So we need to figure out where this number is. Where is this number on our page? I'm going to use my console developer tools. I'm going to click it, and I can see that it's a P element. It's just a P element, but that's not good enough. I need to be able to identify this element. Actually, I could identify it without an ID, okay? I could find it by the tag. But the vast majority of cases, you're not going to have one P element on a page. You're going to have hundreds, maybe. Probably hundreds, I would say. So you're going to need an ID. You're probably going to need an ID. You can't use the way you do it with CSS. So I'm going to say ID equals number of remaining guests. Okay? So now, at the end of the function, no. I need to look at this right here, right? Get document.get element by ID. I need to find this element. I'm interested in its inner HTML. And I'm going to change that to number of remaining guests, right? So I refresh it. I put in 5 or 3. I guess. Do you guys see that? Do you see this number change? What if I guess one more time? The number also changed. If I guess again, 0 guests remaining. If I guess one more time, I'm out of guess. Okay? So now, yes, Ray?
I don't stay at 0.
It stays at 0 because the number of remaining guests is 0. 3 minus equals. Huh, that should be negative. Where did I set it equal to 0?
At the top right there was highlight.
Oh, I return right here. That's right. I return right here. So the next time line 32 will never execute. I can never ever get it to go lower as the code is currently written. So you guys are getting a feel for what the return keyword does now, right? So the number will never ever be below 0. Okay, what's the rest of our user stories? Okay, we can start over the button, or we can start over with the button. So now let's go ahead and add one more button. We'll say reset game. Okay, we'll say start over.
Okay.
Did I? Reset game?
Is that M or N?
It's an M, right? Reset game. Okay, so what do I need to do, guys? What do these two parentheses indicate to you guys? It's a function. That's exactly what it is. So I'm going to write a new function and call it reset game. I'm going to give it braces, guys. I see a couple of us messing up with this. I make this mistake too. So if it's just because we typo, that's okay. But we should understand that we have to have braces function declarations. Okay. So what do I like doing, guys? You guys have seen me do this 50 times. What do I like doing each time I add a new function? I'm going to test it. I always want to see that it works. Okay. I'm going to test this motherfucker. Okay. So I'm going to start over. Oops, I don't have my console. Let's open up this bad boy. So we can see that when I click this button, test works, right? When I click this button, the other function works. Right, guys? Okay. All right, so in our reset button, right? Our reset function, we want the number of guests to go back up. So we're just gonna set it back to 3. Okay, so I'm gonna refresh the page. I'm gonna guess 1. Oh fuck. I'm gonna guess 3, 3, 0. I should be out of guess now. 0. I'm out of guess, right? If I start over, I want to be able to guess again. You notice how I can't guess again, right? You guys see that? V, you see that, V? I cannot guess again. Why can I not guess again? I'm clicking this button, but it's not guessing. Look, I'm gonna refresh the page. Look, I can guess 1. I can guess 2. I can guess 3. Why can I not guess again? Tell me in code why I can't guess again, though. You don't even need to read all of it. Just read the conditionals. If my number of guesses equal to 0, on line 10 I return. So none of this code will ever execute. None of it will execute. That is why I'm not guessing again. Okay, so I'm out of guess right now. If I click start over, and then I guess again, I can guess again. But what is a reasonable expectation, guys? From a UI perspective. I want you guys to look at out of guess right here, okay? Out of guess. If I start over, if I click this button, what should happen? It resets. We just demonstrated that I can guess after that. But what else do I want to see? This number should return to 3. This should disappear, okay? So watch what happens. I start over. This number is still the same. And out of guess is also still there. But can I guess again? I can guess again. Okay? So when we reset, we still also need to do all this stuff. Okay? So we'll say this is invisible. We'll say that this is invisible. And we'll say that this code should also no, we don't want to pop the user. We want to make it hidden, right? And then what else, guys? Okay, this one right here. The number of guests should be reducing by 1, right? You guys with me? So I'm entering a number, entering a number, entering a number. One more guess. Okay? I can't guess anymore. Now, if I click start over, I want to see this number change to 3 and this disappear. Did that work? This should also be empty. Good job, man. You're fucking thinking ahead of me. So this also needs to fire right here. Okay? So refresh. I guess. Oh shit. I guess. I'm out of guess. If I start over, this number should disappear. That should turn to 3. This should disappear. Excellent. Okay. So we've added some console logs. We've done a bunch of user stories. So this is basically the most basic way we can do it. But we see a lot of repeated code, guys. Yeah, see that? We see document.get element by ID everywhere, right? So how can we clean up our code? Let's define a bunch of smaller functions which will do the same thing as these ones right here, but they will accept arguments, right? So look at these 3 lines right here, guys. Lines 9 through 11, right? This is basically the same thing as these 3 lines, right? Except what's different? This is different, and the number and the string here is different. So we can write a function which says update UI. Update, here to say prompt user accordingly, right? This is a function. It's gonna do some stuff, right? So I want this function to take a couple arguments so that it can be used multiple times. Okay? Because the point of writing this function is so I don't have to write this line, and then this line, these lines, and then these lines, and then these lines, and then these lines. As you can imagine, this is how errors happen. When you write the same code over and over and over again, you type more errors happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this is going to take 3 arguments. It's going to take 2 arguments because this will always be visible. Okay? So I'm going to say the first argument is button class. The second argument is prompt dialog. Did I spell that right? Dialog. Define dialog. Did I spell that right? I spelled it wrong. It's okay. All right, dialog. So prompt dialog. Okay. What am I going to do with these arguments, guys? When this function is called, what should I do with these arguments? When this function is called, I want this argument on line 5 to go into line 7. Because I'm going to pass this argument from the place that calls it. And I'm going to do the same thing with prompt dialog. So now how can I refactor the rest of my code? I can just take prompt user accordingly and call it. So I'm going to prompt user accordingly. I'm going to pass it an alert warning, right? Because that's in my button class. Where does this alert warning go? Where will this eventually end up, guys? Alert warning will eventually end up in button class. And where does button class go? Button class on line 5 will eventually go to button class on line 7. We're just passing data back and forth, back and forth. That's all we're doing, okay? Now, what is the second argument to my prompt user accordingly? Out of guess. That's exactly what it is, okay? So now I can delete this. I can delete all this right here, right? So I'm gonna delete that. I'm gonna delete this. This one's gonna be a success. Right here. Right? Now this one's gonna be this right here. I made an error right here. Looks good. I could delete this. Let's go and do the same thing. Let's go and do what? Let's do the same thing with these. It's going to be button danger. It's going to be button danger. It's going to be your guess was blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'm going to delete this right here. We'll do this one right as well. Same concept, guys. Come on. Same concept. We're passing arguments. That's all we're doing. This is also danger. And this is the guess was too low. Okay. So now we cleaned up our code just a little bit. It looks a little bit easier to understand, or a little bit easier to read, right? That's one thing. And secondly, prompt user accordingly. That seems to me explicit. It's telling me what this function is going to do. It's going to do something that lets the user know something's happening. So let's just test to make sure this bad boy works. So I'm going to guess 4. Does that work? 4 is 4 too high? Is 4 higher than, oops, I didn't console log this. Let's go ahead and actually, okay. Let's see. I think 1 to 10 is fine. Okay, so 7, right? I'm gonna guess 1. Is 1 smaller than 7? Test it one more time. I'm gonna guess 10. Is 10 higher than 9? Right. Okay. All right, so that seems like that works. So user can press a button to check their guess. Let's go ahead and restart from the beginning. I like reading my user stories again, so I can get the understanding of what the user will do. A user can attempt to guess a random integer between 1 and 100. I did 1 to 10 just to make things easy to think about. That's okay. A user can press a button to check their guess and receive feedback on whether their guess was too low, too high. Okay, that works. After the user enters a guess, the text box is cleared. That works. A user sees feedback about the most recent guess in a Bootstrap alert class div. If the guess is correct, the user will see a div style with the success background. Does that work? That works. Let's see, 2. Okay, that seems like it's okay. The user is limited to 10 guesses to guess the correct number and can see the number of remaining guesses after each incorrect guess in the guesses remaining area. Does that work? Yeah? A user can restart the game by pressing the start over button or link. I think that works too. Okay, so I'm going to add one more user story. The user can see a history of past guests. Okay, this one should be interesting. Okay, so I'm going to add a new HTML element, and I'm gonna call this one. We'll call this one ID guess history. Okay. So what type of data can I store this? How can I store this data of the history of the guest, guys? What's a way that my program can store this data to work with and manipulate in the future? An array. So I need to have an array somewhere. We'll say let guest history equals an array. Okay? So now I need to push something onto the array each and every single time the user guesses, right? So I'm going to say guess history dot push number guessed. I spelled this wrong. Number guessed. Okay. So I'm going to push the number guessed onto this guess history array. Okay? And how can we confirm that this works? The console log, baby. That's my favorite tool. I'm just going to console log it each time. I'm going to guess 100. And we can see that our array now has a 100 in it. Let's guess 200. And we can see our array now has 2 elements in it. And these 2 elements have numbers in them. Right? Okay, so now we have a way to, our program has a way to store this data, and it has access to this data. It's inside of what, guys? It's inside guess history. What is guess history? It's an array. Excellent. Okay, so we need to use this array somehow. We need to use this data somehow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a new function. I'm going to say write guess history. Okay? I'm just going to fire it. This function is not going to take any arguments whatsoever. There are many different ways to write a function. You don't need to write arguments. It's just like a really useful way to do it. It's like a common practice. Okay? So now our function, I'm going to write it at the top again. I'm going to do function, write guess history, write guess history. I actually am going to pass an argument because I don't want to run the same code again, okay? I don't want to do this code right here again, right? So I'm just going to take the number guess that this code will give me on line 23. I'm going to take the number guess. I'm going to pass it as a function argument, as an argument to my function call. So write guess history now has an argument, right? And we're going to say guess right here. Okay, so I'm going to copy this code right here, get history.push, and put it in this as well, because that's where it makes the most sense. This code has to do with, keeping the history of our guess. So now this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a loop. And this loop will look at every single element in the array and do something with it. Okay? So in order to demonstrate this, I'm going to show you right here first. One second. Style equals background, color, pink. Height, 100 pixels. Width, 100 pixels. Okay, so this exists right here, right? So I'm going to select it. How can I add something to this using code, guys? How can I add something inside of this box right here? Can I do something like document.get element by ID dot guess history, Okay, I have it. And I can do something that inner HTML equals hello world. So bam, it just sticks it in there, right? So something called append. JS append. Append. So we need to create a new node. In order to do this properly, guys, we need to create a new node, okay? That's just what it's called. I don't know why. It's called a node, but for simplicity's sake, we're just gonna add the number in, okay? So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna run this command. I'm gonna run this command and get what's inside of it. Const inner HTML is equal to whatever inside of it, okay? Now I'm gonna run a mapping function because I need to look at every single element in the array and then stick it in here, okay? So I'm gonna do guess history dot map. The argument is what? It's a function. A function has a body, and then we're just gonna say, actually I did this a little bit wrong, guys, I'm sorry. No, I did this right. I'm gonna say inner HTML dot plus equals element. Guess, we'll call it guess. Okay, so what is this guess? What is inner HTML going to look like? Let's make sure we know. Inner HTML, inner HTML. So I'm gonna refresh the page. I'm gonna type in 1. Number guessed is not defined. Number guessed is and number 9. Oh, it's guess right here. My bad. It's guess right here. Okay. Let's try this again. Assignment to a constant variable. I can't do this. Select. Okay. Let's do 1. So we can see that every single time I'm guessing this string is getting longer, right? So we need to actually do something better. We'll say equals inner HTML. Oops. Fuck. We use string concatenation. Inner HTML, comma. Okay. Guess. So I'm gonna refresh this. Let's try it again. So we do see some separation, right? I actually kind of did this wrong a little bit. Let's call it like this. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on what's going on now? Say again. So this is a mistake by here, and there's a way to solve this. Let's just do this right here. I know. This is what it is. Okay. 1. There we go. I need to concatenate this. Here it is. Come on. Come on, baby. That looks good. That looks good. That looks good. Right? So now we have a string. This all this is a string. What can we do with the string? We do document. That get element by ID. What's the ID? Guess history, right? Right, guys? I'm gonna do value is equal to inner HTML. So I expect when we guess, we now start seeing numbers in here. I did something wrong. Dot inner HTML. Damn. Is that clear, guys? What, look, it's all, this is. I'm tired of my product owner right now. Okay, just because he pays me money doesn't mean he has to make my life difficult. Okay, but he's right. We're constantly gonna run into problems like this, guys. Oh, why the fuck is that comma there? Why the fuck is the comma there? Get rid of the comma. Okay, this is gonna be your life very soon, guys. So this is not that complicated. I want you guys to help me out on this, okay? Help me out. You did a good job, Kwa. Okay, I'm not saying you can't do it, but what I'm trying to say is we can solve this. And I've done all of these, and I want you guys to now work on this some more. I want you guys to do every one of these user stories, okay? And I want you to do more than me, because it just takes a little bit of thinking, but we can do this. This is all doable. Do you have any questions? Right.
The random number 6.
Random number 6?
Like if you do a random number. Yeah.
So right here, random number is defined. Guys, this is also another important concept. Scoping. The reason why random number stays at 6, right, is because when this function is called, I have 3 functions right now. Why can't I fucking close this? God damn it. I have 4 functions right now, okay? I have 4 functions right now. Each one of these functions is going to need access to some data. It can be random number, it can be number of guess, it can be guess history. But if I were to put this inside of one of these functions, it would not be available to the other function. The scope of this data is bigger than each individual function. I am Lloyd, whether or not I'm in CoderSchool, whether or not I'm in Vietnam, whether or not I'm in Florida. But I'm only an instructor inside of CoderSchool. When I go home, I become a tenant. When I go home to Florida, I become someone's brother. I become someone's son. So this data.
Wait, but you're still their brother or son, even if you're in Vietnam.
Okay, so that's correct, right? So it just no, I get that. So but the point I'm trying to say is that like some of our scoping is dependent on where we're at. I'm not an instructor to everyone, right? I'm not always going to be an instructor to everyone. So, sometimes I'm someone's coworker. Obviously, I'm their team member and shit like that. But I'm your guys' instructor. So this is what the concept of scope is. Scope means that a variable is not always available and it's not always the same thing in every single context. And this is a very abstract concept, but you guys got to get familiar with it. Okay? Okay, so I just showed this to you guys. It's 11:30. Let's break. I want you guys to, I'm going to record the video. I'm going to save it, upload it to YouTube. You guys can review. And yeah. Any final questions? Okay, guys, thank you.
Your first lesson, I think it's too advanced.
Say again?
The dry gas is very much.
Yeah. Guys, how's this advanced? What does the push do? What does the push do?
Yeah, that's okay. But the inner HTML stuff.
This is just declaring a variable that we're going to use in a second. Because we want to store all these numbers. We want to store all these numbers inside a string. And then we want to stick the string inside of an HTML element. That's all it is. We're creating a string. We're sticking a string inside of an element. It's the same thing, right? That inner HTML, that's the same thing as this right here. That's not different. But how do we build this HTML? This here, we'll call this list of user guests. So that works too, right?
Should be nothing better for us. Yeah.
Right? Does that work? I think this will work. That works, right?
How can you type like all the things
How
at
do
the
you
same
select
time?
it all?
Say again?
How do you select all?
Yeah, so like on the back, on the
How do you select it so you can?
How do you select all the name in the VS code at the same time?
Okay, so all you gotta do is highlight it, guys, and do Command or Control D. Yeah. You guys need to get used to your code editor. This is your knife. Okay? You guys are cooks. You need to know what your knives are. You gotta know which knife is for what. You guys know which pot is for what. Which stove is for what. Okay? Alright guys, I'm gonna let you guys work on this. I've been talking for a while. Yes, Hill.
So an array can contain anything, right?
An array can contain anything. It can contain arrays, it can contain strings, numbers, objects.
So this can also mean contain class. Can it contain class? Because for example, I want to create a website with like 1,000 line code, but it's the same code like this. It's not so. Can I create an array that contains class, that contains the return of that code? So I only have to write one loop to put an answer for everything.
Yes, but you gotta know your data types, man. You gotta know how to handle your data. Because ultimately, all we're dealing with is data, guys. That's the only thing we're working with. Right? This game depends on these three variables right here. If these three variables do not exist, this game does not work. Okay? And then we have to understand some things about this data. We have to understand the data type, right? We gotta understand sometimes we need to open up the data, right? For example, the array. On line 8, I'm not interested in the array. I'm interested in the elements inside the array, right? The array just has a purpose. It's to hold the data for me and to, make it easier to work with. That's all it is. It's a different type of data that's easier to work with. Bananas are easier to peel, right, than a melon. With a watermelon. A watermelon, I better have a knife. I'm not going to use that. I'm sorry, that's abstract. Show me an example later, okay? I need to see an example before I can answer with degree. Any more questions? All right, guys. Good class. I'm going to go ahead and stop, and we'll break for lunch.